So we seem to have lined up pretty nicely after about a minute. Everyone very, very punctual today. Wondering where everyone's calling in from. Delighted to be over here on the other side of the Atlantic, based here in Dublin, Ireland. My name is Mark Moriarty. I see in the chat function people from Seattle, Monument, Colorado, North Cal, DC, some beautiful places around America. Delighted to be here with a couple of guests who I'll introduce very, very soon for the ZACAPA Experience, a journey above the clouds with the chefs. As you see in the chat function, this is a live webinar, so we do encourage you, if you have any comments, any questions, just to fire them in the chat, and we will be coming to questions as we go through. So anything you see that you want to talk further about or that you have questions on, dishes you might like or that you don't like, just throw it in there and we'll come to them straight away. It is very interactive and we do want to hear from you. So without further ado, I'm going to move into the start of our presentation just to give some brief introductions both to myself and a couple of our guests today. Before I do, just a couple of house rules. Well, not rules actually. We're going to be spending about 45 to 60 minutes here on this topic. We're talking about ZACAPA specifically in the food occasion, so the aperitif, the digestif. As I said, that chat function is definitely open. And all the recipes you see today are going to be sent straight after via email. So you can get anything you want to replicate straight away. Any questions, you'll find me at Mark Moriarty1 on Instagram or Chef Grace Ramirez on Instagram for any further up on that. And also on the Diageo Bar Academy website, you're going to be getting all the recipes and content from the session there. So who am I? I am Mark Moriarty, and why am I talking to you? Well, I am currently the Diageo Reserve Chef in Residence. So what is that? I basically am tasked with bringing the Diageo brands, particularly ZACAPA today, to life through innovative food experiences and working behind the scenes with the industry, with my colleagues to bring, I suppose, innovative and really showcasing our brands in practical commercial ways for bars and for restaurants. As well as that, I do some PR work as well, showcasing through big events, how our brands can come to life, particularly from the food side. Outside of my Diageo role, I do a couple of things. I've been obviously in Diageo since 2018. I'm also a sous chef at the Greenhouse restaurant here in Dublin, where in October last year, we were lucky enough to win our second Michelin star. I love great food. I love great drink. And I also love talking. So as well as the restaurant I'm with Diageo, I do some TV work. Have a couple of series on the Irish national broadcaster here, and work with San Pellegrino and the world's 50 best. Just a brief introduction to me, to what I do. And I've really enjoyed, since coming on in 2018, working particularly with ZACAPA and seeing how versatile it is and how it's come to life, particularly with some of the programs we've done all over the world. But I have an even better guest who is far more able to talk about ZACAPA and the wonderful world it presents in food than me, and that is our brilliant global ZACAPA brand ambassador, Grace Ramirez. Grace, how are you?
Hi, oh my God, I'm so excited. This is like a party. And then we have Lorena here. I couldn't wait for today, but then Lorena is joining us and it's a pleasure for me to be here. I have so many notes. Like I want to talk about so many things. I literally did my homework, but it's like, you know, I love being part of this brand. It feels like a family. It feels, Lorena, I adore her and I love this brand and we can't really wait to share with you all our passion and our love and lots of flavor.
And you blew my first surprise that Lorena Vasquez, the master distiller of ZACAPA, is here on the line. Lorena, great to see you.
Hi.
Brilliant to have you here to talk about food. I know you're a big fan of chefs.
Love the food. I love cooking and the cocktail.
So hopefully we're
ZACAPA, all the time with ZACAPA. Hi everyone, thank you for attending this invitation. Enjoy the presentation with Grace and Mar.
We're gonna be bothering you, Lore, because you explain certain things. What makes ZACAPA so special? You can jump in.
Because I was thinking how better when we get to some of the real things behind
Yeah.
ZACAPA, that we don't have to talk about it, Grace. We can give it to the master blender herself.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Because I was like, how am I going to do justice to this?
So it's brilliant to have Lorena here. No doubt we're going to be hearing from her throughout. Before I do move into the session, Grace, I won't leave you behind. You do have a fantastic CV, not only as our ZACAPA Global Brand Ambassador, but as an activist, particularly with the UN, a TV personality, an all-round brilliant chef, and someone who's ticked every box almost in the industry. I mean, there's a list here. I won't go through it all. That reads off of some of the best TV food TV that's been created anywhere in the world. Looking at MasterChef season 1 all the way through to My Kitchen Rules. No, you did New Zealand. So, and having met you a couple of times, there is no one more passionate about food and ZACAPA and brilliant food and drink as you. So, can't wait to get into seeing some of your delicious food and creations.
I know we're big fans of each other. I am a big fan.
That leads me in.
But thank you.
That leads me into teeing you up as someone that is so passionate about ZACAPA. What makes it so special?
Look, I can, as you know, for real, I can talk about ZACAPA for hours and forever. I am such a fan of this brand before I even started working with this brand, and I'm from Venezuela, so people get really upset at me when I talk so much about ZACAPA. But now I get the pleasure to work with Lorena and the ZACAPA team, and for me, first and foremost, Lorena. Lorena has created an amazing product that from the first sip, I remember exactly where I was. And I when it comes to food and drinks, I have this memory, right? And there's only like 5 things I clearly remember: where I had them, what I was feeling, what was happening. And when I tried ZACAPA, that's exactly what happened to me. I was like, the aroma, the color, the flavor, I literally still get goosebumps just thinking about that first sip of ZACAPA, that I was like, okay, I need to know more. Who did this rum? Because I am a big rum drinker. And then I found out that it's a woman master blender, Lorena Vasquez. And I was like, okay, now I love it even more. Not only is this product a stunning liquid, so balanced, so beautiful to look at. The bottle, stunning. The flavor is out of this world. I was like, well, I don't even understand what's happening in my palate, which, a lot of liquors fall flat. It's just like, okay, it's good. But with ZACAPA, I was like, wait, let me have one more sip. Like, what is happening? I got, it's over 500 notes of flavors in there. So I really wanted to know more. And then I found this wonderful woman that it's done in Guatemala, which as most people that know me, I am an ambassador for all Latin things. And then, on top of it all, it's not only a stunning product created by a woman, done in Guatemala, but the bottle is hand weaved by over 700 women in Guatemala by the Petate ring. So, and then on top of that, it just pairs beautiful with all the food that I make. So we're gonna talk about what really makes it so special, but I wanted to give like a personal intro of why I personally love the brand.
I might take you up on that. I had similar experience, but in a far less romantic way. I was 2018. I had come over to the offices in Amsterdam, and I had never tasted ZACAPA. And obviously, I've tasted rum from all over the world, and I tasted this liquid in a very plain office on a rainy day in Amsterdam, and I thought, this is really, really good. This is so balanced. Why have I not had this before? And it was the balance, particularly in the liquid. And that's not where it stopped. It was then the guys in the team told me, well, let me tell you the story behind it, about Lorena, about the aging above the clouds, about the petate weaving, and the whole story of Guatemala, and a place I didn't understand or know much about, but I got a cultural experience through this amazing rum in ZACAPA. And although it was a very unromantic place, it was something that transported me to a far more engaging place for the senses, and as I love to do with food and drink, in an amazingly delicious way, which I think is testament to, like you said, it was one of those things I've tasted dishes all over the world. I've drank things all over the world, but very few standout moments stick in your head. And that for me was also one of them. Which brings me on to...
I'm so happy to hear that.
From
I'm sorry you had it in an office. I had it on an island and it was pretty romantic.
Well, that's the thing. It travels anywhere in the world. I'd like to bring you in and ask you a question, and feel free to bring Lorena in at any point here on that story we talk about Guatemala and what makes the production of Zacapa so special, starting with the House Above the Clouds.
Yeah, you know, I think it's what you said, and I love it that Lorena's here because she can obviously jump in and clarify it. But Zacapa is a cultural experience. You know, I had the pleasure of going to Guatemala with Lorena, and what she's able to do in for the country and in the country and for Zacapa it's something like I've never seen. You know, it's three different. First of all, Guatemala as a country is I lived in Costa Rica. My mother lives in Mexico. I've traveled everywhere, but I went to Guatemala specifically to know more about Zacapa, and it's such a stunning country. It has over 30 volcanoes. 3 of them are active, so that terroir and that soil make, you know, the sugar cane extra special. She has 3 different types of sugar canes that she uses. Not so the sugar canes are grown on the coast, on the south, but then after the south, then there's a distillation process happens, and then it gets put in the barrels and they get aged above the clouds. So it's 3 different places that this stunning liquid goes to. So this is just like a little sneak peek of the passion and work that go into it. We're going to go into the Solera system and the whole aging process, but I think Lorena should talk briefly about her. First of all, the place is stunning. It really is above the clouds, and it's a cooler climate. So the sugar canes, they get grown on the south, you know, on the coast, and then when it's time to age it and to be in the different barrels, it's in this beautiful cloud, which is 7,545 feet above sea level. So it is a cooler, moist climate, and that also helps with all these different tasting notes. And I think Lorena should jump in here to tell us a bit more about her stunning house above the clouds.
Lorena, that was one piece I remember hearing in that day in Amsterdam, was the place and Guatemala and the flavors of Guatemala and how it all transported into this liquid. The house above the clouds, is that something that makes it so unique from a Zacapa point of view?
For me, yes, as this point is very, very, very special for us, but it's very different, the aging in the low land with the high altitude. It's very, very different. But normally in the highland is more caliente, heater.
Hotter, yeah, it's hotter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The aging process is more fast or more aggressive. Yeah, is for me is not have the balance in the aroma and the flavor.
And I think that's a beautiful way. And even as a chef, I'm looking at this photo on the left of the aging above the clouds, and where sometimes you might think of some liquids that temperature is controlled by machines or by computers, that in Guatemala, it's still that natural. It has that history to it, that it is the climate that produces this amazing liquid. I just think, and again, as my head goes from a chef point of view, it's that story that I want to tell through my food and through drink. There's a question there just to touch as we go on any new releases from the holidays. So we can share that we're looking to do a partnership with Cocktail Courier and Saloon Box for the holiday season, and that there will be more info released very, very soon. But when it comes to the cask selection, it's a fusion of aromas, of flavors and sensations you see there. We talk about the Solera system, and this for me, from a chef's point of view, is Lorena is the master distiller, but she thinks in exactly the same way a chef does. So I always compare it to like making a sauce. So you make a stock, and then you add your roast bones, and then you add your flavors and your aromas in different stages of making a sauce, in the same way that Lorena makes, except she puts the liquid through different barrels. So from cognac to sherry to PX wine barrels, each giving it a different layer of flavor in the same way like making an amazing sauce. I might just throw to Grace here
Absolutely.
on that,
You
and
know,
what a story that is.
yeah, I think you nailed it. I love the food analogy because yeah, with Zacapa you can tell that Lorena is a great cook because she builds layers of flavors and so the Solera system. First of all, it's over 500 years old. The Spaniards created it especially for sherry wines, and Zacapa is a blend of rums from 6 years to 23 years old. And what Lorena has, it's not the same thing to just kind of, and I love this quote that Lauren Mott said, because she goes, it's not like taking rum, putting it in one cask, waiting till 12 years, and then that's it. Zacapa goes through multiple barrels. And I love this specific slide because it goes through what the color development of what happens in each barrel and the different aromas and flavors and tones that each barrel gives us, right? So depending if it's Zacapa 23, Zacapa XO, or Zacapa Edición Negra, they go through, the first different barrels are the same, but then, for example, we have for the Edición Negra, we throw in more smoke and more fire, right? But I would love for Lorena to briefly tell us about the calf selection, because she's going to say it a lot better than us. But why, what each kind of barrel does is exactly what you said. More flavor, more tones. We go from building more vanilla, apricot to dry figs, and then what does wood gives us? It gives us more of those toasted almond flavors, that toasted cacao flavors, that at the end of it, and then she keeps blending. She keeps blending all these things, and I love that when I went there, because it's exactly like you said, Mark. Like a chef, she would try it, and she'd be like, "No, this needs a little bit more of that older rum." And I'm like, how does she know? Like, I don't even understand what's happening, but she knows where her rums are and how this whole thing, like an amazing cook or a chemist, all come together.
Let me frame that in a question, Lorena, because it is amazing. It is like an experienced chef knowing what a sauce might need. How did you choose which sort of barrel to use at which stage?
Okay, before. For me, using the different casks in the aging process are the same, are like spices for the chef. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a comparative, yeah.
But you see in each barrel there,
Literally,
even,
yeah.
you can see the flavors at each barrel, like it's almost like a recipe.
Yes.
And that's what I love, and we do it so many times in the restaurant every day, is we have to make the same sauces for each day, like the color development here at the base. And it's just the experience of knowing it's missing a little bit of toasted almond from the PX barrel, or it's missing just a smoky note from the charred ex-American cask whiskey. And that is a story, and Lorena and herself is being a master blender and distiller. That's a story that when I tasted Zacapa for the first time, it was like, as a customer, I want to know this. This is inspirational. And from a chef's point of view, this slide for me is like, there's nothing you can't do. And it brings me on to what we're going to talk about next, which is the Zacapa before a meal and Zacapa after a meal. So when we think of it in a commercial proposition or where it fits into a restaurant menu, there's so many flavors here that fit into that kind of canapé or starter in the same way as they might more obviously fit into the chocolate, the clove, the orange zest, the toasted almond, plum, raisin. I could go on and on of a dessert, which is what myself and Grace sat down before this this chat and this presentation to come up with, well, what sort of dishes can we do to showcase ZACAPA at its best? And we did do a few dishes that you're going to see here that have been paired with a couple of the ranges of ZACAPA. So I might ask you, Lorena, in terms of ZACAPA 23 or ZACAPA up to XO, what makes each of these so special? if you only have 1 minute.
It's like asking which was your favorite child.
Yeah. But normally, I prefer ZACAPA 23 for the pairing with the food, yeah? But I love ZACAPA Edición Negra with the barbecue, yeah?
Ah, yes.
Smoked cheese.
Beautiful.
With ZACAPA 23, I love sashimi.
Really?
Yes, sashimi. For dessert, I love the chocolate mousse with cacao and ZACAPA inside the
Beautiful in the mousse.
Yeah, ZACAPA XO for me is for the end, the meat, after dinner or lunch, for the long time. No sé cómo se dice sobremesa. ¿Cómo se dice sobremesa, Grace?
It's like that app. It's that post. Sobremesa is what we Latinos and Spaniards do, and Italians too, that we spend 3 hours after we eat. We do a sobremesa. I don't think there is an English proper word for that, because that's what I say to no one leaves. We have to do the sobremesa, which is talk and share a moment that lasts like about 3 hours. Mark, is there a proper word for that? Because a proper English word for that? I don't think so.
Just sounds like a good time.
Yes, for a very important, for very special long time after dinner.
That's what we remember. There is a question coming in from Declan Walsh there that I might just ask you, Lorena, is there an exact time or recipe that each barrel has to flavor the liquid, or do you go every year by tasting and the aroma and changing the recipe?
Yes, no, all the time we are tasting at the different barrels.
Yeah.
All the time, yeah. For us, it's very important the aroma and the flavor in the different casks and the different liquids and the different rum. No?
And Grace, I think that's amazing that for so many years that it's not just a set recipe. It's obviously things change every year, and the climate changes and the temperature,
Yes.
and to be able to taste and make sure that it's a consistent, beautiful rum that comes out time after time takes real skill, and shows, I suppose, the artisanal way that this amazing rum is created.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because imagine consistency is key in these types of products. No one wants, it's like in our service industry, right? No one wants to go to the restaurant and have that beautiful fish and then go next week and it tastes completely different. You want that kind of consistency. So you have to take all those factors into consideration, but yet also have a little bit of room of like, life happens, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do want to have, your ZACAPA 23, your Edición Negra, and have it like you imagined it. You don't want it to be completely different. So it is, and with all the Solera system and all the blends happening and going from one barrel to the next, imagine the work and the passion that has to go into this.
And again, they're all amazing stories from a customer point of view to be able to learn about and hear about if you're sitting there having your drink before or after your meal, is where this comes from, the work that goes into it to create such a brilliant liquid, because sometimes it can be lost when you're sitting at a table with something in the glass. Which brings me on to, for me, the best part of the presentation almost, which is the food and the drink and the creativity. And Lorena, I know you're going to be standing by to tell us what you think with maybe thumbs up or hopefully not a thumbs down. Any questions from anyone who's watching in, just throw them in the chat box, or any comments you might have. We'll definitely come to them as we go. But Grace, we spoke about fitting this into appetizers and aperitifs. Now we will have one, I suppose, example in the middle of where a ZACAPA can fit into the middle of the meal. But for us in
Yeah,
restaurants here in Dublin,
exactly.
we tend to leave that middle of the meal. In terms of your feelings on that, the before and after?
You know, I think that that's brilliant. I think that that's also a space where there's a lot of room for us to fit in. You know, I think that, and I love the space. I love to talk about this because it's like now mixologists more and more are becoming like your sommelier, right? That person that is going to tell you, actually, what are you going to have for dinner? And let me recommend you a cocktail. And what I love as well about ZACAPA is that, you know, I don't think of ZACAPA just as rum. I think of ZACAPA fits into that space that you were going to have, like that scotch or that whiskey or that bourbon, right?
Yeah.
It's at the beginning of the meal that you're like, I need something smooth, and then I'm gonna go into my meal. I'm gonna have my wine, and then I'm gonna end with an XO. So I think that obviously I wanted to throw one example into which we're gonna talk about. That yes, you can put it in that middle of the meal kind of thing, but I think in terms of our industry, it just fits perfect into that aperitif, appetizer, and then end of the meal.
And I think from a commercial proposition, just conscious of how this actually fits into the business every day, we brought a cocktail program into the greenhouse last July. We didn't have a set cocktail program. We didn't hire any extra staff to do it. Lauren Moat came over and kindly used ZACAPA in two of our cocktail lists, the aperitif and the digestif. They were very quality done, but they were in a pre-batch method. And we sell on average 8 a night. We've got 40 seats, up to 40 a week in our services. And at the end of the year, we've been able to offer a better service to our customers with some beautiful ZACAPA cocktails, which sometimes they find a lot less intimidating than maybe a champagne list or going into vintage, non-vintage. And it's resulted in about 35 to 40,000 euro extra revenue a year, with every part of the business doing better. So it covers a full chef de partie for a year, or a full bartender for a year, or X amount of truffles, or X amount of whatever ingredient it might be. So there is commercial proposition behind this that we can prove can work, and the customers do love it. Which brings us to our first amazing dish that we're going to throw to you, Grace. So it's a ZACAPA Edición Negra on the rocks. I hope you enjoyed my Spanish pronunciation there. So very, very simple, presenting the liquid in its purest form. And Grace, you've done the sort of aperitif or starter.
Yeah. So, you know, very simple, obviously. And in here, Edición Negra can go beautiful with just some camarones a la plancha, you know, like just plain, simple, beautiful prawns thrown at the barbecue, thrown on the grill, thrown however you want, and just some beautiful salt. It's just the sweetness of the prawns will contrast beautifully with the Edición Negra. If you char them a little bit and give them that extra heat to the prawns, and that little smokiness can go beautifully with the smokiness of the Edición Negra. Here on this recipe that you also guys are gonna get, I did a guajillo adobo. When I tried that ZACAPA, I said, oh my God, this is gonna be so stunning. I love guajillos, chilies. They're dry chilies, and they look like they can kill you because they're long, and they're about this big, and they're beautiful to look at, but they're actually quite sweet. They have a lot of berries, undertones, a lot of raisins, and I make a very simple kind of it's an adobo, which I basically marinate them there, and then with very high heat, I just kind of very quickly give them that one blast of heat until they're done, and that's about it. It's a very simple recipe, but it's stunning because I feel about guajillos that it's that type of chili that, just like ZACAPA, you're like, okay, wait, it's not heat, it's not hot, but I'm feeling all these different tones, like I said, like berries, like raisins, but then you're getting that smoke as well. And it just goes stunning with a very simple edición negra. And I think that for me, you know, I love working with Lynette and Lauren when they give me cocktail recipes. But it's funny because when I'm cooking at home, most of the times I just have meat. I just have it neat. I have like a zacapa 23. And that's why I also love that they, you know, they've been saying like that's why with zacapa, like in Manhattan or, you know, a good old fashioned is great because the liquid is the one that is shining. I think that just like you and I know, you know, the French created very heavy sauces to kind of mask something that wasn't great, right? And I think that with zacapa, you don't need much because you have a stunning base. The liquid is stunning, so you just need a couple of things where you can get creative, but we want that liquor to shine. And I feel you know, for me, my food philosophy is the same. Like I try to have very simple things. I try to let the ingredients shine. So obviously, always throw a Latin twist in there, which in this case, they are. It's a very simple guajillo adobo, which I marinate the prawns or the shrimps for about 30 minutes, and then I personally love grilling them because, as you know, I love to grill and play with fire. And Edición Negra, it's all about fire and smoke. So this is a wonderful, beautiful flavor combination. No, it's not ancho chile, it's guajillo chile, which is very different than from ancho. Ancho chile is another different type of chile that it is as well. It's dried, but this one is guajillos. That was a question, and I immediately read it and responded right away.
Absolutely. And I think that the point that really stands out there is, and particularly with food, is if you've got something amazing in the glass, you just have to do something very simple alongside with some quality produce. And I like the way you described the sweetness of those prawns with just that background, I suppose, heat, a little bit of smoke and a little bit of the heat from the chili with the seasoning of the salt is just going to balance beautifully in the same way that the Negro will in the glass. So I suppose a perfect pairing, and beautiful as well. I mean, you look at the colors, you see that Latin flair. It definitely is a little better than this room in Dublin heading into winter. It brings me to as ZACAPA always does, a beautiful, better place. There's a quick question before I move on for Lorena. From Brian Bird, wondering if there might be any new ZACAPA iterations possibly using Irish whiskey barrels.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do one specifically for Brian.
No, we are doing tests with this type of gas.
So yeah, we'll keep it on the straight and narrow. And I suppose when a recipe is so perfect, very little needs to be done with it. Next, I'm going to bring you on to a second aperitif. Again, as Grace alluded to earlier, we're just trying to keep it simple and looking at certain venues that it doesn't always have to be the top end places or the fancy places that can serve amazing ZACAPA alongside some great food. So Lauren Moat kind of did the ZACAPA Red Sangria. So you've got that lovely red berry. You've got the ZACAPA 23 in there. So you've got its beautiful balance. It's sort of, I suppose, caramelized savory notes with the lovely balance of sweetness. The red berries in there with just a touch of heat. So I've done a little, just a very, very simple dish alongside. So we've got some beautiful brioche buns. Brioche is one of those things that I love with any type of little burger or slider. But when you think of brioche itself, it's buttery, it's savory, it's got those toasted notes, that sweetness to it. And it very much reflects ZACAPA 23 in the glass in a very simple food piece. And then I've just done it with some ground lamb mince into a little lamb patty. Nothing too much in there apart from a little bit of salt and a little bit of cumin, which is one of my favorite spices. And I know from having researched Guatemala, it has some of the best range of spices anywhere in the world. It's done with a very simple little mayonnaise with some more of that cumin there and a little bit of citrus lime, just to lift it all up. And then I've added some jalapeno. So it's one of my favorite ingredients. I know Lorena had mentioned earlier about about ceviche as a nice pairing with Zacapa. We actually do a scallop dish in the restaurant where we make a dressing with jalapeno juice and elderflower, and like that with the sweet raw scallop. It's a beautiful way of presenting alongside something like Zacapa in a way you wouldn't think. So I've just added the jalapeno in there to give that bit of background heat, and much in the same way as Grace had with the chilies there, it just gives you that lovely buttery brioche, that nuttiness, the savoriness and the balance of the lamb, a little bit of hint of spice, warming spice from the cumin, and then that touch that you're left afterwards of that, I call it that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling from not overbearing, but just warm enough jalapenos, which I suppose reflects the Zacapa in the glass. And then with Lauren served there as well, it's served on ice. You have that nice contrast with the jalapeno heat, and those red berries lovely tie in with that spice cumin. So for me, again, you can do all the fancy things in the world, but also if you have something like a slider on the menu, there's a perfect opportunity there for a bartender to suggest a brilliant Zacapa serve alongside. As I say,
I
as we
love
keep
this pairing. I love this pairing because it's very unexpected, honestly. No, I think that I love that we're opening people's mind to just not think about Zacapa, like you're saying, think of something really fancy and very unapproachable. And yeah, us chefs, we're very guilty for being at a bar and just ordering a nice slider all the time. So I really love this pairing.
and I
Can't wait
think
to try it. I've never tried your sliders.
well, that's, I see Tobias there. When do we get to taste this all? Well, as I said before, these recipes are going out. So ideally, you're all going to make them at home, take the photos, send it on, and see how you get on. But I think as well with
Maybe
coming up to,
Lorena and I just need to go visit you. When this
I
is
think
all
that
over, we'll go visit you.
I think yeah, jumping on the plane, or even better, I still haven't been over to Guatemala. That would be a great
Exacto.
culinary tour to do. Might even
Last
get a bit of
time
a
I saw you
suntan.
making a lechon, remember, Lorena, that he was made the
Yes.
huge lechon. So you're already like part of the family, like for sure.
Hopefully, you won't have
You're
to do it for.
Latin at heart. You're Latin at heart, Mark.
I may not look it, but I have some fire in there. Or Grace, I'm going to move on now to where we spoke about perhaps food fitting into the middle of a meal, and a perfect example here of Lynette Morero's drink of a Zacapa vanilla old fashioned.
Yeah, I did this because first, I love a good fatty pork chop. But I think people sometimes are a little bit intimidated to cook pork chops, or they don't know what to do with it. This is my favorite way of eating pork chops. That it's that Dijon mustard, very citrusy, thyme, capers. Butter, very buttery, and it has shallots. I think that I love that Lynette paired it with a Zacapa vanilla old fashioned. One of our staple drinks for Zacapa is the old fashioned. I particularly love this version. I think that her it has, first of all, that vanilla. It's gonna pair beautifully with that citrus on the pork chops, and it's going to cut through all that fat as well, right? And you're going to feel like it's literally going to be an explosion of flavors, because you do have the sweetness of the vanilla, and then but you also are going to get that little bit of chocolate from the chocolate bitters that she has in there, and then it's just gonna be a party with that finishing of that the citrus and the mustard from the pork chop. So again, we also wanted to open your minds up that it, like, again, it doesn't have to just be at the beginning and at the end of the meals. You can have a very relatively simple dish that you can make at home or at a restaurant, like these pork chops. I also love that Lynette used here, you know, she uses very little sugar when it comes to making her old fashions, and I love that, because you do need, again, the liquid is so stunning and it speaks for itself. You don't want to completely just kill it with a lot of sugar. I love that she made a vanilla bean sugar that she literally blends just the vanilla bean with the sugar, and it's stunning. It's just a bit. It's and then she puts that orange bitter that again will complement the dish. A dash of chocolate bitters, which for me, chocolate can go many ways. I love that she puts the option of the mole bitters because it's going to bring more spices in there, that beautiful warm cinnamon. And then you can use an orange peel and a vanilla bean or orange twist for garnish. And yeah, it's just kind of, again, we love old fashions. There's many versions of them, but this one specifically, it's just perfect for that lamb chop. It's a pretty simple dish that I love.
And I think it shows as well. It doesn't have to be just Latin cuisine, or it doesn't have to be. You could almost describe this as a kind of very classic European or classic French. That there's so many places the ZACAPA can fit in and works in ways that you mightn't have imagined at the start. And we're talking about as well coming into the kind of October, November, December kind of season, and it's these beautiful warming dishes that are going to present massive opportunities to fit as a ZACAPA in there, and in a way where people taste the ZACAPA for the first time, they're initially hooked. And food for me is one of those perfect ways of presenting it to people who mightn't be willing to try it in the first place. Another beautiful one, Grace, is making me very, very hungry. Capers mustard that's my jam. I'm very, very in on that. So we'll move from the savory. So we've ticked off there the kind of before a meal, and with that beautiful pork chop dish, where it can fit in the middle. But desserts and digestifs is probably a bit more of an obvious place for any rum or ZACAPA and its flavor profile to fit in. So when we talk about this, I've gone with something very simple. It's my favorite dessert in the world. When I actually literally had it at nearly 10 o'clock here. So I had my dinner before I came on and did this, and treated myself to a sticky toffee pudding. But I've done a bit of a twist on it to really fit in with the ZACAPA. So it's a split base old fashioned using ZACAPA 23 by Lauren Moat, which you can see your orange zest twist there, and a little bit of smoke just on table side, which gives that idea of the aging above the clouds and a sense of Guatemala, and just that bit of theater that our customers often love, particularly with this, because it's a very visual way in a drink sense of bringing people and transporting them. Okay, they mightn't be in an office in Amsterdam, but from your bar into the core of this brand and where it comes from. And when I think of a sticky toffee, a sticky date pudding. So date is one of those things. It's jammy, it's sweet, it's delicious. We bake it we mix it with butter, and we mix it with flour, and I add a little bit of brown butter. You will get the recipes, don't fear. A little bit of brown butter into the cake mix, and we just cook it in a loaf tin. There's some vanilla in there, and we make a puree of the dates. Have a little bit of walnut in there, or some toasted nuts. We cook it in a loaf tin, we chill it, and then we slice it. And where it really comes to life in the same way as with ZACAPA is the sauce. So we make a caramel sauce. So you get your sugar in there, you get it really lovely and dark golden brown, just where that bitter is coming out of it. And what I do is I split it with some cream and a little bit of citrus, so lemon juice or lime juice, which just adds another layer, in the same way as Lorena might add it to another barrel to give the liquid another layer of flavor. Adding that citrus into the caramel will just lift it. It'll give it that acid hit, bring that sweet and sour, balance it as well, because it's balance we're always looking at when we think of something like ZACAPA. And then sea salt ice cream. So this could be something as simple as a vanilla ice cream, and all you do is you add a little bit of salt crystal on top, or smoked salt. And what that will do is it will just push back the sugar, just like it does when you're making cocktails. And I'm no expert at making cocktails. I add a lot of salt in desserts and a lot of acid, because it pushes back the sugar and it brings the flavor more to the fore. So you're not just tasting a big sweet mess. There's actually layers of flavors going on in there. And then when I think of how it relates to the drink, we think of caramel, we think of dates, we think of lemon zest, we think of acid, we think of beautiful salt and that sea salt ice cream. But in a very simple way, something you could very easily make at home. It doesn't have to be amazing Michelin-starred cuisine to tell the story of ZACAPA. And particularly for guests who might be open to trying something, it's a very relatable way of getting in there. And it's, again, something I would love to sit down to every night if I could, and have that split base old fashioned and my sticky toffee pudding. But I'd be about twice the size I am now if that happened. So we can't do that.
I love that you added that theater to it, because I think that that's more and more, well, you know, before this whole situation, this whole new life that we're having, we were doing a lot of dinners that were paired with ZACAPA, and just I love bringing Guatemala to you, you know, and telling the story of the rum through food. It's beautiful. So I love that whole smokiness, and I think that right now customers also, when they are treating themselves to going out to a restaurant, they want that little extra theater, right? They want that extra little something. So yeah, that looks very sexy.
And it's one of those things. I love that word, describing food, as well. That's when you know you've done it. Is and we've seen it. Is I do a lot of my Diageo work, that often customers and people, they mightn't they mightn't fully understand the world of spirits and the world of rums and the different variants, but everyone eats every day. So food is a great way of communicating a story, or bringing people's attention to something in a glass in a way that they understand, because everyone has to eat, right? So it's like one of those magnets, or those hooks, particularly nowadays. And like from what I'm seeing in the restaurant here with everything that's gone on, is now that we've reopened our doors, everyone's having cocktails, because it was one of those things. They could eat at home, they could buy a bottle of wine at home, but very few could make cocktails. And now the first thing they want when they come back is, I want the full experience, I want the cocktails. And that's a massive opportunity for any restaurant or bar. Before I push you on here to the chocolate brownies, Grace, just a couple of questions that come in. Trip Harrison, as ZACAPA is so very balanced, do you like cocktails that would be polar opposite? That's a very interesting question that I get a lot. I don't know what you feel on it, Grace, but from my point of view, it's keeping it really simple from a drinks, from a food point of view, because we are trying to showcase something amazing. Like here, if you take ZACAPA XO, it's brilliant by itself. So you don't want to add a load of flavors on a plate of food that are going to confuse everything. So often what we'll challenge our bar manager to do is produce a dish that's nearly complete. So maybe it has 4 of the 5 elements that it needs. And then we leave that 5th element to the glass, the cocktail, or the ZACAPA, so that when people eat something and then they drink it together, it suddenly comes together full circle. Mm-hmm. Or like you said, Trip, we do something that's the polar opposite. So we don't try and replicate too much. We try to, I suppose, contrast, so that people taste something and they go, okay, this is interesting. And then the contrast of the ZACAPA really brings the quality of it to life. And that's something we do, I suppose, in the restaurant every day. I don't know what your take on that might be.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I love that you said, because to me, you know, when you go to restaurants and you're like, okay, this dish, if they would have left 4 ingredients out, it would have been perfect. But it's just too much. And just you're stop. Like, yeah, just make it stop, you know, and it's like, oh, and then they add, you know, then they add the goat cheese, and then they add the nuts, and then they add the more spice, and then they put cilantro, and then they put thyme, and you're like, no, you should have stopped 4 ingredients before. And I think that is, and you know, as we talk about this journey of ZACAPA, I think that exactly as we talked about the liquid, we can talk about the food. It just, you don't need to do much, and it just need to complement. And that, exactly like you said, that last sip should be the thing that you're like, okay, amazing. And I think that is the way now I think about food, you know, just, we have to think about food as a whole experience, right? And more I'm not just thinking about layers of flavor, but then exactly what am I going to pair it with, right? And even because everything matters when it comes to food. I talk about this a lot. The temperature is key. You know, how many times have we had sushi that is too cold and you're like, this is disgusting? Or you've had a dish that it's too hot and you're like, okay, that just burned my palate. Now I can't taste anything.
For a week.
So exactly. So it's like, everything matters. And I think that, you know, the temperature of the food is key, but the even the lighting, how many times have we been to a restaurant? It's like, this light is hitting me here and I can't even enjoy my dish because it's like blown out. I can't even see it properly, or that it's too dark and you don't even know what you're eating. So I'm thinking about food, and because I work so much doing these dinners and doing pop-ups and with French chefs, of a full experience, right? It's just not the dish. Everything needs to complement each other and everything needs to tell a story. And we don't need to go into the details of, oh, and the cow came and we ate the grass, and no, but it needs to tell a story. You need to be transported somehow into, oh, okay, this is exceptional.
Which brings me straight to here. So in terms of chocolate brownies, ZACAPA XO, neat. Now for me, these are just, like you said, doing a couple of simple things perfectly as opposed to trying to get confused and do loads, which is, I suppose, the real, and I talk about Lorena in the same way as I talk about some of the great chefs. It's the ability and the experience to know when to leave something alone is actually the real skill. It's how to do four things perfectly, or add it to a certain amount of barrels for certain times. That's the real skill. And that's why ZACAPA is, I suppose, a rum and a liquid for the best restaurants, the best chefs, and the best palates. But you look at something like this and it's so simple, but explain to me why this works, because I know how it works, but yeah, I'd love to hear your take on it.
You know, I think that exactly like you said, you know, we've all been apprenticed, we've all had our learning experience. And I think when we are a bit insecure, we try to do too much. And I've literally tried to stay away from these flourless chocolate brownies, but they are indeed life-changing. Like, I don't know one person that has not tried it that I'm like, this just changed my life. And it's very simple because it's, again, here, what you want is a good quality chocolate at 70%. And a stunning 70% chocolate doesn't need much. And it gets folded beautiful with eggs. Obviously the folding is key. So you get that nice and moist and that fluffiness of the brownie, but it has no flour. So it has no distractor of, it's just chocolate. And then, you know, you can add walnuts or not. I add a little bit of like a cayenne pepper or an ancho chili, and salt, because those spices are just going to wake the chocolate up and they're going to have that little bit of an extra explosion in your mouth. You know, you can add a little bit of sea salt on the top just for that extra. It has to be flaky, a beautiful flaky salt that is going to give you that little bit of extra crunch in your mouth. But this is one of those things that I guarantee it's a crowd pleaser. And I did this flavor combination because I was living in New Zealand and I wanted to, and I would basically bring from Australia ZACAPA for guests, and I would put this at the end of the meal, neat as it is, and people were like, couldn't believe it. It's just that XO goes through that extra barrel of cognac, and it's just that elegancia, that it's so elegant, right? It's so it's so beautiful. It doesn't need anything. It's a story of its own. It's I love the word elegance, because that to me is ZACAPA XO. It's just beautiful in the palate, and that's gonna go stunning with a very simple chocolate dessert. And even if you, as you know, even if you can cook, you can get a beautiful piece of dark chocolate and have it with XO, and it's just a beautiful flavor combination.
And when we talk about, I know they talk about in Diageo terms as bronze, silver, gold. So this is something so simple that does exactly the same as actually in the restaurant at the moment. We have a chocolate dessert that is paired with XO, neat and slightly chilled. And it is, like you said there, we use the best chocolate we can get in the world that we feel. It's actually from Tuscany, and it has these amazing range of pepper, red fruit, spices going through it. And we serve it very simply, with some toasted buckwheat and some tonka bean ice cream, all these things that make the chocolate taste more of itself. So essentially, while it might look fancy, it's showcasing a brilliant chocolate and served alongside XO, which is an amazing liquid. And people sit there and they go, this is the best piece of chocolate I've ever had with the most amazing pairing. And they're blown away, and they never forget about not only the food, but the Zacapa. And then they come back and we never take it off the menu because everyone wants it. So they keep coming back and they keep spending money, which is the name of the game. And that's why we're here, not only creating brilliant liquids, but commercially driving it. I'm just going to finish with a very simple, tart. It's been done the world over. I just thought at this time, I know the raspberry season's just coming to an end here in Ireland, probably goes a bit longer in parts of America. Raspberry tart, vanilla pastry cream, a little bit of mint, paired with Zacapa tea punch by Lauren Moat, who loves her tea pairings at the end. It's low ABV, using Zacapa 23. And I just think something as simple as beautiful caramelized short crust pastry, vanilla pastry cream with its beautiful butter, all those vanilla notes in there, a touch of icing sugar, a little bit of lemon zest. So just a lighter version of how Zacapa can appear from a food point of view. But you have the mint there and the lemon, and it just offers that menthol through the middle. That's something that comes out for me in Zacapa, particularly when it's served at room temperature neat. It's one of those flavors that presents itself, and I love. So you got a bit of menthol there and a bit of citrus lemon. So again, it's a tart. It uses grapefruit. It uses a bit of vanilla, some nice, like the brioche, some caramelized pastry and butter notes that just tell the brilliant story of Zacapa in the glass. And for me, raspberries, I always use fruit when I talk about Zacapa from a Diageo point of view. Is when you think about wine or liquids, is you pick fruit to create wine, say, when it has to be picked at a certain time. So it starts like this, I don't know if you can see me here, where the acid's really high and the sugar's really low in the fruit. And the idea is you want to pick it just here where you have that perfect balance of sweet and sour in the fruit to produce the amazing liquid. And obviously if you leave it too long, the sugar takes over, the acid drops, and it becomes like jam. And for me, getting perfectly ripe fruit is a great way of telling people how amazingly balanced Zacapa is, in the fact that the skill of the master blender of Lorena in blending it and knowing when to move it through the casks in the Solera system produces this perfect rounded balance, in the same way as something as simple as being able to pick a raspberry at the perfect moment and serve it to the customer is a skill in itself. So just a nice link there, I suppose, between the food and the amazing liquid. At that point, I know we've spent almost an hour here. It's flown by for me. Just I know we've hit questions along the way. If there are any questions, I might just throw to Lorena at this point before we wrap up on. Did you like our food, or are we okay? Can we keep our jobs?
I'm very hungry.
Which is usually a good sign, because I know Lorena knows her food. So Lorena, from my point of view, it was amazing to have you on here to see our creations and our food and be able to talk about the amazing Zacapa and why we like to use it, and be able to showcase how if you were a chef and you focused on that, you'd probably be one of the great chefs of the world in the same way as you are on the distilling side. So thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure as always.
Before we end, I want to read this, and I think it's the perfect way to end as well. Brian Bird says, after this pandemic mess is all over, we can't wait to host Lorena in San Diego, California for a Zacapa dinner. And he goes, Lorena, siempre tienes una mesa abierta aquí en San Diego. Mi esposa es de México, piensa turrón es el mejor del mundo. Lo siento, mi español es más o menos. Basically, he said that Lorena has a table for her in San Diego because his wife is from Mexico and thinks her rum is the best in the world. And he's sorry that he speaks bad Spanish, but thank you guys. Thank you all for being here with us. And thank you, Lorena, for joining us. And you, Mark, for being such a wonderful host and friend.
For attending.
And it's always a pleasure. And I think Grace said it better there. Lorena is the best in the business. And luckily, if you keep an eye on your emails, because Lorena will be joining us in the near future for a full session on going into more depth about the creation of Zacapa, the house above the clouds, the Solera system, everything, where you'll be able to ask her even more questions. So keep an eye on your email. And also, The email will be landing very soon after this session with all the recipes from today, both from the food and the drink side. So I suppose we leave you in peace at this point. It's goodbye from me in Dublin, Ireland in the middle of the night. Sláinte Declan Walsh.
Yeah.
And I think it's time for me to go and have a ZACAPA. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
You're
you.
amazing.
Bye-bye.
Gracias.